나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교 나무 묘호랭개교. Okay, hello everyone. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. So happy you're here. I hope you're in good health and secure. By the way, totally appreciate the comments and the emails. Some of you ask questions in emails or comments that quite often I turn into videos because the questions, it's funny, some of the most basic things about learning any subjects in Buddhism, that would be Buddha. Although I've talked at length about it in many different ways, it's the kind of question that we would be reticent to ask. Usually for reasons that we might be obviating our lack of understanding, and we don't necessarily want to make that public, right? But maybe every time, but most often, certainly, that kind of question is a question that lots and lots of people would want to ask, or maybe don't even realize they want to ask, but have been going along with a certain shorthand or ignorance or just an assumption that works well enough, and we just go on with whatever it is. I think that's just our human nature. And this particular question, and thank you for asking it, is I've been talking a lot about original enlightenment, and that Buddha-ness, that suchness. And so the obvious question is, so what is Buddha? If Buddha's not Shakyamuni, if Buddha's not a person, but a state of consciousness, right? The ninth consciousness, or in the 10th realm, we identify Buddha in all these places, but it never really gives you a look up in the dictionary, Buddha, da. In fact, if you look Buddha up in the dictionary, it'll give you historic information on Buddha Shakyamuni, or many Buddhas. And even that's elusive and misleading, right? So this question was really well put, and I answered it in an email. And I turned that into a PDF document, and I put it on threefoldlotus.com. That's, in case you forgot, that's the website. It's a resource for all sorts of stuff. And I don't know if the video will pick this up, but this link of core study materials will send you to a page that has just dozens of links with various subjects. And I don't have it on this JPEG. I apologize for that. But if you scroll down a little bit, there'll be a big, dark print one that says Buddha with a question mark. I think that's what it does. And if you click on that, you'll get the actual document, the question and the answer that I provided. And it's more than just one page. I just wanted you to see it. And this question, worded as it is really about original enlightenment. But in a broader sense, it's about what the heck is Buddha? What do we mean when we say Buddha? And maybe we can grasp that as a consciousness, but how is that anything to do with the beginning of time-space, the original enlightenment. What does that mean under the covers of language, right? And so I wanted to. I know that document is it's brief. It has a weird little analogy in it. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, all of us probably need to get our heads around what we mean when we're talking about this, because it applies to what it is we're trying to attain, awaken, right? So the analogy, I'll just start with the analogy I used. As fumbly as it is, I think it's a real quick way to realize the truth that I keep talking about, the entire universe, this whole thing, time, space, this being one with all things, because things are not static, they're constantly shifting. And so what I'm trying to identify, and what Buddhism tries to identify, is this fundamental building block on which all the formations exist, right? All forms, first of all, let's start there. Anything you can identify as a form. A thought is a form. That's not intuitive to think that way, but a thought is a form, just like a car is a form, a wheel is a form, a blade of grass is a form, leaves are in various forms. So at some point before leaf, before car, before wheel, before nose, there is formations, energetic formations that instantiate or manifest form. So one of the things I said is that wherever there is form, there consequently must be formation. It doesn't just, even if it popped into the air like a fish in the atmosphere, there's that formation before it exists, right? That's pretty straightforward, I think. So where the wishy-washiness comes from is trying to wrap our minds around the idea that if there's formations, if there's formations, or if there's form, there must be formations. If there is baseball, there is something that baseball is made from. What's not as intuitive is that if there's something forming baseball, what is it forming from? Is there just a big vat of stuff, again, thingifying, that we make a baseball from? Then I can link formation. Goop, formation, baseball. That equation's intuitive. Why is that intuitive? Because samsara, because human mind, because everything we think in each thought moment is thingifying. It's how we relate to this experience of humanity. We identify immediately with forms. We don't naturally, intuitively relate to formations. In fact, that's why I said it in reverse order. Where there is form, there is obviously something that formed, formation. Well, that's logical. We can accept that, even though that's not the way we experience the world, right? But then taking another step, the formations are actions, work on energy, something you can't see, smell, taste, or touch. And so we see evidence of it at work, karma, but we don't see what does just energy look like. It's not the electricity flowing through a wire, although that's a result of energy. It's moving, it's being displaced, and we have a whole mathematic around the law of thermodynamics and magnetism and on and on and on. We can define the form, but the formation of it is trickier. Even particle physics and cosmologists are still trying to figure that one out, right? And to say to you, well, that's Buddha, I don't, I may have slipped and said it that way in the past, but it's something I really avoid because that's not Buddha. See, the idea that there's something pre-existing to existence is our tripwire in our samsaric mind, because we absolutely believe anything that exists comes from something that exists. Therefore, original enlightenment must be this floating little Buddha-ness throughout the universe that decides to make something. But that's not correct at all. So that's why I thought I need to talk about this directly. Buddha equals, what is Buddha? Buddha is your insight. It's your perception. It's your cognition. It's your understanding of the entire picture. So you think about that and you think, okay, it's a state of mind. And you hear that all the time. Buddha is a state of mind. It's a state, or what's the other one? Buddha is a life condition. It's a little slipperier. Buddhism is about the mind, intent and attitude. It's about the mind. So Buddha is a mind that perceives the entirety of the process of life. As mind-blowing as that is, and I've talked about this at length, that we see everything in process, we understand and we experience the world as an expression of every potential thing, every potential form. And that's hard to wrestle with, as the largesse of that picture suggests a kind of a dissolution of self, doesn't it? Which is the point of our practice, actually. We don't lose anything. We don't extinguish anything. We simply perceive through our skandhas, with the help of our Buddha mind, we see the obviousness of the process, rather than being hung up on the forms made by the process. That's just part of the process. So it's a very transient state. It's a very transformative state. And ultimately, that's what releases us from stress and so on and so forth, right? Okay, I think I'm getting that. But then we throw original enlightenment into the mix. Well, now immediately our samsaric mind goes, oh, so this is something I attain in my mind, in my practice, but it's been there since, what is origin? What is original? What is the confusion? Just big wave of it comes into our head, right? And I am losing frames. That is so frustrating. I will figure this out one day. Anyway, sorry, back to Buddha. So the analogy, yeah, I'm finally going to get to it, I used is, have you ever boiled the water out of a pan and then noticed there's like a chalky residue in the pan when all the water's gone? Have you ever seen that? Most of us have seen it either as kids or when you forgot you were boiling some eggs or whatever, and now they're all, you smell that burnt. That takes forever to get out of the house, by the way, burnt boiled eggs. If you've never seen it, take a stainless steel or a light colored pot and just put half a cup of water in it. and leave it on boil until every speck of water is gone. Don't just walk away from it. Stay there. It'll take a little while, but let all the water evaporate out of that pan. And then, take it off the heat and look at the pan, and you'll see that there's some chalky, whitish residue. Unless you have perfectly distilled water, any water source is going to have minerals in it. And that's what that deposit is. And the way we think, our mind works, if you compare it to Buddhism, is that there's water, and then once it all evaporates, minerals suddenly show up in the pot. And that's kind of how we think about our Buddhist practice. If I chant and recite and, focus, Buddha will appear. And that's even kind of in the rhetoric, isn't it? And I tend to fault cultural biases for that, because cultural biases are what? They're our samsaric human attempt to understand. And the way we think and understand is through thingifying. So we make Buddha a thing, but Buddha is not a thing. Buddha is a perception, an understanding. And so maybe start there. And so when I tell you that the analogy then says that you are now seeing the mineral residue in the pan from evaporating all the water, but whatever mineral residue you find was always there. It was part of the water. It's just that the water components have evaporated away, and the minerals, which don't become a gas and evaporate away, settle out into the bottom of the pan. They were there all along. We just didn't perceive them there. Right? The water's clear. Where did the minerals come from? Well, it's part of the water. So, in a way of understanding Buddhism, you could say that the minerals that you've suddenly found, discovered, were there originally. Does that make sense? So when we talk about, or Nichiren talks about, or sutras talk about, original enlightenment, this is just an extension of, or a different way of saying, inherent Buddhahood, inherent ability to perceive the process. And so the logic around that is that if a process exists, the ability to perceive the process is built in, or the process wouldn't exist. So to perceive Buddha mind is to perceive the process. And that process hasn't changed, is no different today, 14 billion years into this universe, than it was at the instant of its formation. Another way I could say it is that formation is still ongoing in this universe. It's constantly changing. And if there's one truth to existence, is that it's constantly forming. Think about how the stem cells in your bone marrow get programmed via DNA and other factors to become certain kinds of cells that are required to replace older dying cells or weak cells everywhere in your body. Right? There are many studies that say approximately 7 years' time, every single cell in your body, brain, heart, liver, feet, toenails, has been replaced. So physically, you are not the person you were 7 years ago. Physically, let alone mentally. Everything is doing exactly that. The universe is doing that. Stars form, stars explode, become other things. Galaxies run into each other. Things are constantly changing. This is just the process of everything. But shifting our mind's purview of the process to understanding that we're in that flow, that everything is constantly in change. That is Buddha. Buddha is the awareness, not the thing. Just like if you were to look for your mind, you would not be able to identify it other than by experiencing it, right? That consciousness, that ninth consciousness, the 10th world, that all of that is a mental abstraction, cognition, perception. I still don't know if I've covered this well enough for you to understand what original enlightenment means is that it is inherent in the entire process to become aware of and witness the process. It's part of the process. So, of course, it's been there from time without beginning and will be there in time without end. Because the instantiation, the formation of the process comes from quiescence. And where there's quiescence, there is no formation. And where there's no formation, there is no space or time. There isn't, quote, is not. What is the result of the process of potential gaining energy to produce mass, time, space. This is where time begins, and all the way until it's cyclical. I like that Penrose analogy of the universe, although mathematicians can argue about it all day. The concept of the universe expanding until everything gets swallowed up in black holes and then there is no mass again, only energy, photons. No mass means there's no time, therefore there's no space. So everything collapses into this dense, energetic state, and then at some point, poof, starts all over again. It's cyclical. But at the end, quote unquote, just as the beginning, quote unquote, there is no thing, nomina. There is no time-space. Time without beginning, time without end. That's what those words mean. Is that where Buddha is? Heck no. Buddha is in your mind. It can only exist in the mind. It has its own carved out section, the ninth consciousness. But what does that consciousness perceive? The entire time, time without time, space without space, to this point and on. It's just a witness of a condition that's always existed. This is why it's original, not because it's been there all along, but that mind, that potential mind, has been there all along. Does that make sense? I hope it helps. I'm going to, I'm losing so many frames here. I'm going to have to do something different. But in the meantime, Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Comment on this video. Let me know what it is I'm saying that just doesn't want to fit in the puzzle for you. Or also let me know, oh man, I suddenly get it. I hope I hear more of those. It is a huge concept. And yet, it's so freaking simple, it's almost maddening that we don't just simply, but when we chant, we experience it. Whether we understand or know that we're experiencing it, that's why we practice. We keep chipping away at this sandcastle we've built of an existence and our world view, which is made of innumerable, unfathomably huge amounts of data points, that our brain and our samsaric mind wants to hang on to. And suddenly we have to perceive that all of it's a dream. It's not that it's not real like a dream. It's that it's not real like permanent. That everything, including the sands on the beach, are changing in every single moment. That we are part of that flow and we can witness it. That's what liberates us from our stress and anxiety about hanging on to every little blade of grass. That's how we liberate, free ourselves from all of the compound emotions and states of uncertainty that are based on impermanence and our fear of it, right? All right. Experience and savor your Buddhahood, or your perception of Buddha, right? Because we're all experiencing that same aha moment of all things, the process of formations and forms, understanding that they're constantly evolving, changing, decaying, on and on and on. Stick with it. The more you experience it, the more everything suddenly, it calms you. It's like turning a light on in the attic. Everything's there. It's just that you experience it in a new way, a less stressful way, right? And with that, I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to dive into our wonderful Go show again for the teaching approved by all Buddhas. And what does that mean, all Buddhas, right? Or emanations of Shakyamuni or Buddha. Again, if you understand what Buddha is, Buddha-ness, the understanding, the perception of suchnesses, that's all anything is. It's a pile of characteristics, right? What did I say many videos ago? Particles. The things that we in science think everything is made of, right? Chasing the fundamental particles, which are really not they're not like particles like particle board. They're collections of definitions of states of energy. Kinetics, momentum. That in itself is a very complex thing to hold in mind. But as you enliven and exist more in your Buddha, the more that seems to have a very elegant solution to the constant transmigration of everything. Stay healthy, be kind to yourself first, and then you'll find it so easy to be kind to others. Your practice, keep it strong. It will continue to make more and more sense. And I deeply appreciate your participation. Thank you for being here. thank you if you're able to support this channel with, likes and subscriptions and sharing. And certainly, if you have the ability to support this channel financially, I might be able to solve these camera and audio problems one day. I'm working on it. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.